I think we've got a statistic that I think on average that hauliers are paid. Was it
4 days early?
4 days early?
Yesterday's early. During 2025, found that hauliers were actually getting paid early, 4 days early, ahead of the agreed terms.
It can often feel daunting, I would suggest, for those hauliers I'm talking about the middle to small size hauliers, to engage in this sort of platform.
Again, going back to your previous point around about building relationships, some of those large shippers are actually sort of gaining access to this wider network of hauliers that they never knew existed.
I think that's really clear and relevant actually to the day-to-day issues that the industry is seeing, irrespective of the size and scale.
Not so much is this transforming the haulage industry, it's really transforming the freight forwarding industry. So the automotive companies used to have 2 or 3 of the big well-known freight forwarders controlling all of the business throughout Europe. That's changing quite rapidly now, and the digitalisation has gone back to the original point. This is what's driving that change, and it's not making it more expensive, it's making it really better.
Why should people use HaulageHub, the RHA HaulageHub relationship, rather than a other digital system that's out there that's one of your competitors? What's different between you guys and everybody else, apart from obviously the RHA relationship? Welcome to Roadway, the podcast where we explore matters and issues that affect the road, van and coach sectors. Today we're talking about digital transformation, and I'm joined by the guys from HaulageHub, Craig, Scott and John, where we're going to talk about digitalisation in a specific part of the industry, but more so how that's impacting the broader part of the industry. More later on. So, John, Craig, Scott, welcome. If we can start by just unpacking a little bit about your background, why we're here today, what you've done in your careers. So, John, would you like to go first?
Okay, we can start. I've been in the industry all my life, pretty much. I was 3rd generation haulier. Going back to the horse and cart days, my grandfather apparently had 200 horses working the docks back in the day. So we've been had a member of the Lucy family as members of the RHA right throughout that time. I'm now on the board of the RHA, which obviously is a big honour. And I've been a haulier myself for 20 years. I was never going to go into the business because I'd seen what I'd done to my father and grandfather. It's a stressful business, and it was my ambition not to go anywhere near it. And unfortunately, my father died when I was 21. So my big life-changing moment was, that's it, I'm going to take over the business and crack on and go from there, so which I did do for 20 years. I always had a focus on international transport, and that's pretty much shaped my career and the various roles I've had all the way through. And for the last couple of years, I've been an independent, so I'm taking consultancy advisory roles with various sort of stakeholders within the industry. And one company that really caught my eye early on was HaulageHub, and I'll let the guys explain why really where we're up to with that.
Thank you very much, John. That's a nice segue in. So HaulageHub, Scott, Craig, tell us a little bit about yourself and HaulageHub. What is it?
Yeah, so first of all, my name's Craig Thompson, co-founder of HaulageHub, home of the RHA Exchange. My background is predominantly around sort of technology, so I sort of spent the last 20 years building software businesses, ranging from sort of startups to blue-chip organisations. And as part of that journey, built a bespoke software house that basically dealt with a few sort of various systems, various industries, but that kind of slowly dwarfed into a CRM system called One Wizard, which is still going strong today. I first started working in haulage with Scott back in 2018. I think he was doing some consulting at a large 3PL. And basically, we were building a solution to help hauliers price work accurately and at scale. And it was kind of when we were doing that process, it kind of became quite apparent the inefficiencies in the system. So it's right in the industry. So as part of that project that we were working on, he kind of calculated the haulier sort of empty running costs and kind of took it all into account when they were sort of tendering for work. It's really good tool.
So we're going to come back to that in a little bit. We'll just unpack the actual detail of what HaulageHub is. But back to you, Scott. Just a little bit about your background and HaulageHub.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So I'm Scott Robertson, again one of the co-founders of HaulageHub. So similar to John, I grew up around trucks and diesel. So diesel in the vein. So my dad had a small family haulage business during the 80s and 90s, which he subsequently sold and then worked in other logistics roles through his career. So I sort of grew up around transport, and it's something that's very, very close to my heart. Despite my dad's best efforts after finishing uni, I ended up doing some consultancy works for a few different 3PLs. And Craig touched on it there. So one of them was the first tool that Craig and I worked on called Roadway to streamline the tendering process of responding to large tenders. And it was actually during a meeting we were actually going to speak to a company around Rootbaiter. Actually, we got there early and we ended up having a chat in Asda in Altrincham, didn't we? And I said, I've got this idea about a digital freight marketplace. That was kind of the first piece on it. And then COVID hit, and it kind of presented us an opportunity really to actually sort of get HaulageHub off the ground. So effectively, in essence, HaulageHub is a digital freight marketplace that's designed to basically bring hauliers and shippers together in an efficient manner to reduce empty running and make haulage more profitable for haulage operators.
Okay. Thank you very much, Scott. And certainly, Craig, 20 years in the industry, you look very well on it. You look a lot better than I do for my 35 years in this industry, I must say. If we could just move on a little bit now. So there's a lot of conversation, certainly in the last few years, people talk about AI, digitalisation, and, the move away from doing traditional things, reducing empty running. And one of the figures that's often quoted by stakeholders I sit with is that there's 30% empty running. I don't know where that 30% came from. It must have been a piece of analysis you did, John, with the horse and cart. But it seems to be a number that people hold on. If we can reduce the 30% empty running, there's environmental benefits because there's less trucks on the road, there's less emissions, there's less rubber burning on tarmacs. There's obviously cost efficiency. So the partnership that, the RHA and HaulageHub are developing is aimed really at improving all of the above, which we'll talk a little bit about in a moment. But it's also fair to say that the industry is traditional, and it's also very forward-looking, and there's different sizes of hauliers in the middle of that, and they have different ways of engaging. And so the average haulier, less than 15 trucks, doesn't have a back office. Doesn't have the ability to do things that a corporate that you mentioned would do. So from a HaulageHub perspective, and from your three perspectives, why do you think the digitalisation is the right time to do it now? So what is it that's saying digitalisation, this industry is ready for it?
I think in terms of now, I think obviously the environment that we're in terms of obviously we see daily around about pressures on margins for haulers, obviously a massive piece. And we touched on there about the 30% empty running. That's a stat that's been published by the DFT roughly from around about 2010 onwards, and it has fluctuated a little bit, but yeah, it's typically always around about 30%. And I think with that, again, with the pressures on margins, it actually provides a major opportunity. If that inefficiency can effectively be tackled, it can only have major impact on the bottom line. Obviously, there's other benefits we talk about in terms of the environment, but in terms of bottom line, that's obviously one of the key bits. That's the key topic within haulage at the moment. If we can tackle that 30% inefficiency, empty running, get trucks reloaded quicker, shorter distances, it's only going to have positive impacts on haulers and their ongoing success.
And going back to, if I may just do something, obviously, it's a leading trade association in this space, representing coaches, trucks and vans. The RHA's part of its role as a trade association is to support, inform, and to give basically the members of the industry a choice, or to make them aware there's something out there. And we developed a relationship and continue to develop that relationship with yourselves in order to, give the opportunity to the industry, to be part of the process that you've just described. How, just refresh my memory, how did the relationship with the RHA come about? Is it been 12 months, 18 months? So often, maybe a question for you, John.
I think it's probably through my association with the RHA and with the HaulageHub as well. And my thing with HaulageHub, my interest is always that I wish it had been around in my day, back in the days when, as a 15 truck haulier, which is a typical member of the RHA even now, the access to that much volume work, to be able to reload the vehicles, to be able to subcontract surplus loads in busy times, it just would have been perfect. And at the time, there was a few European legacy systems which are very expensive subscriptions per year, and you might never use them, or you would no guarantee of taking any work off them. And this was such a revelation to me, really, when I seen it, even though I was not particularly in the transport industry at the time when we first came across and we all met each other. It just seems to me the one system that would work because it made it accessible for all hauliers. I mean, the way it worked, back in the day, if you could pick up a couple of loads, extra loads a week, you'd certainly have your best part of £1,000 a week. That'd be £50,000 for each truck and so on and so on. And that's how it really started making a difference to the bottom line. And the difference, I think, now, going back to your original point about digitalisation, the digitalisation is making the whole process cheaper and better for the haulier and for the shipper. Because back in the days of the some of the clearing houses had particularly a bad reputation. They, employing a lot of staff means a lot of margin has to come out the rate that they've passed on to the hauliers. The digitalisation process that particularly HaulageHub has the advantage of now is it really reduces the cost of pushing those loads out to the industry. So the hauliers now are getting access to better work at much higher rates than was ever been possible before. So it's to me it was a game change and business with using the technology in the right way for the haulage sector.
Okay, thanks, John. I think that's really clear and relevant, actually, to the day-to-day issues that the industry is seeing, irrespective of the size and scale. Because the large corporates, as you guys know, still have challenges around efficiency, and if something's easy and quick to do, they'll always look for that thing. So, what are the pain points, if I can call them that hauliers are telling you they need help with? So, what is it that this digitalisation is overcoming from let's take a typical less than 15 truck haulier, 85% of the industry, less than 15 trucks. What is it that digitalisation in the context of HaulageHub allows them to do tomorrow that they cannot do today? Does that make sense?
I'd probably say it's mainly sort of visibility that I think we sort of hear from obviously speaking to hauliers on a daily basis. I think certainly when we're sort of doing our introductory onboarding calls, we hear sort of like visibility is one of the major issues. I think obviously what HaulageHub and the RHA Exchange can offer hauliers is just immediate visibility into reloads. So say if they know full well that they've got an empty truck, say in York, they're looking to get a load back to the depot in Manchester, rather than just running back empty or ringing round several contacts. They can literally down into the platform and find a load immediately. So I think certainly visibility and overall sort of communication efficiencies has got to be one of the biggest sort of problems that we're finding and hopefully solving.
I'll just sort of add to that. I think for me, it's access to opportunity that's never really been available before. And we're seeing in the more mature markets, where it's like the North American, the European markets, where the digitalisation of the brokerage is sort of probably about maybe 5 years ahead of where we are in the UK. It's allowing the smaller hauliers to access this blue chip work that's never been possible before. And it's allowing the smaller hauliers to sort of grow into a medium-sized haulier. And this is something that's never been happened before under the old sort of legacy system where you had the blue chip companies taking all the contracts, subcontracting it to a third party that didn't own any vehicles, and they were taking a significant cut out of the rate before it got passed on to the general hauliers. It's kind of bypassing that now, and it's allowing the smaller hauliers, particularly in the States, we're seeing this now, where these platforms, the haulier will be signed up to multiple platforms now, and this is allowing them to grow and become more profitable.
So if I can summarise, I think what you said, John, about it's about trust, verification, and raising opportunity in the industry, and particularly the partnership we have as the RHA and HaulageHub is very much focused on that, because obviously the trusted partner is one of the values that sits behind my shoulder in the office at Peterborough. And it's really important that the scepticism, because there is scepticism in the industry, and the scepticism not just in our industry, in every industry. If you listen to the broader conversation about AI that's going to replace everybody's jobs, it's not. It's just going to change the way that we do things. And I think this is a good example of that. Because I remember I used to employ people that had books to ring people up to find me back loads and to get rid of the loads that I couldn't do on it when it was the other way around. And this is that system. From an RHA perspective, and the core values that we have about a trusted partner, about quality, about relevance, this is ticking a lot of those boxes, I would suggest. Just in terms of supporting hauliers of all sizes, I think you've touched upon it. But if you look at the industry, so we've got the large 150, which is the corporate element, I would suggest. And we know where those brands are. And, very relevant to the industry, moving for road freight. You've got the middle-sized hauliers that are in the middle there, but you've got the small majority, which is the 85%. how, just make the point just really simply and clear. How does the exchange support those businesses to grow or to stand still in a challenging environment? Because the two are the same. You know, if you look at 26, the outlook, challenging. 25, it was challenging. The last 2 years, highest levels of hauliers leaving the industry, you know, since records began, since the war, you know, the Second World War, that is. How does this actually help and support that, in your opinion?
I think the key piece, obviously, we already touched on, is access to decent paying work. Again, we talked about trust. So obviously, one of the key things as well with work that's undertaken on the platform, you can see the shippers' details, who they are, so you can get a good understanding of who you're actually working with before you're actually undertaking the work. So that obviously helps massively. First of all, going back to obviously access to quality work, that's obviously huge. And then there's other automated processes as well that sort of help with some of the back office functions as well. So obviously talk there about the 85%, you know, coming back from my background, the small family haulier, there's not the large overhead of having that back office support that obviously the large 3PLs have. Using tools such as HaulageHub, it helps automate a lot of that process. So in terms of us, we're finding work, communicating with the shipper, understanding around about ETAs, turnaround times, and then through to the end piece as well around the actual invoicing of the job. So our solution is so simple that it's all done on a self-bill basis. So again, it eliminates the need for anyone to have to sort of send any invoice in and basically reduces a lot of admin. So effectively, it just slickens up the whole process.
Does it improve payment terms in terms of days they get paid?
I think we've got a statistic that I think on average that hauliers are paid. Was it 3 days early? 4 days early.
Yeah, so
4 days early.
during 2025, found that hauliers were actually getting paid early, 4 days early, ahead of the agreed terms. I think a lot of shippers actually on the platform do up quicker paying terms as well, which is obviously hugely beneficial.
Just 1 point on the visibility for the there's a rating system for the shippers and for the hauliers. So if there's a particularly poor haulier in terms of timekeeping or PODs and so on and so on, that will start being flagged up by the tech on the system. So the shipper can see that, you know, Joe Blogs has got a bad reputation. But by the same token, you also see the 5-star guys out there as well, and vice versa for the shippers as well. If there's someone on there looking to exploit the hauliers, that will be showing up extremely really quickly.
And I think that's important. You know, I think that ragtop sort of system, old-fashioned word perhaps, you know, is if people are providing the service, they need to be aware of that. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that, sharing of that information, because it's, you know, it's a challenging industry, it's a low-margin industry on occasions, but actually by adopting technology, you know, to drive forward is the right thing to do. And transparency is everything. So it can often feel daunting, I would suggest, for those hauliers I'm talking about the middle to small size hauliers, to engage in this sort of platform, you know, because they will see, I think you mentioned the word, John, this is just a clearinghouse, you know, and they'll be taking 50 quid a pallet, 25 quid a pallet. They'll have that skepticism, you know, having come from the industry, you know, 20 years ago, that would be a view of clearinghouses, which are a significant part of this industry and which will be going forward, you know, because that's how people do business and want to do business. And there's not a judgmental right or wrong about it. How do you so if I'm a 15 truck haulier and I'm looking at this, I'm feeling a bit daunted, just talk me through the process, how you onboard me as an RHA member of HaulageHub.
So basically, obviously, the first point of call would be to sort of sign up, and then it's basically a quick and easy process. So you're faced with a few sort of forms. There's access for things like insurance documents, trade references. Let's say going back to the point we were making earlier, verification is absolutely huge for us. So it's in everyone's best interest that everyone's fairly thoroughly vetted that joins the network.
And most importantly, they must have a no license.
Oh yeah, and most importantly,
It's about quality. Yeah.
I think the other thing to touch on as well, the process is incredibly easy, incredibly quick. So, you know, we've worked with hauliers to make sure that the process is as streamlined as possible. Yep. And the other thing is we're always constantly supported, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's fair to say that actually signing up does take a bit of time. Obviously, we very detailed on that. But then in terms of the actual process of finding work, finding subcontractors is dead easy. And
So in terms, I mean, I'm pleased, that I'm pleased that you are very focused on the signing process. It's about your credibility, and there's two brands sat there because we are a brand, the RHA and HaulageHub, and it's important that we have a very clear vetting. When members look to join the RHA, they have to go through a process, and I think one of the key things not directly involved in the partnership from your guys as well is that you need to do exactly the same, because it's not just about moving loads around the country, it's about doing it the right way, which you touched upon, John. Licenses, kind of a basic starting requirement, which we'd be surprised, remember that actually, how many people have not got one of those. And also actually delivering on time and providing you guys a service once they're in there is really, really important. It's not a last chance saloon, I can't find a load, so I'll use HaulageHub. It should become part of their business on a regular basis. So once I'm up and running, is it a bit like me on the bank, or ordering something from Amazon? I can do it on my phone.
Yeah, so basically when you first sign up, you can set up some target areas. So say if there's work that you're regularly looking for, or you regularly run empty, then you can set up as a target area, and then when any work comes on in said areas, you automatically get notified. And then there's work on platform, which you can literally just take there and then. So there's no messing about with offers or anything like that. You can literally just take it there and then, and plan vehicles. Equally, there are opportunities on there which do need an offer, and that will be then accepted by the shipper that's actually posting it. But generally speaking, it is dead easy to use. It's very transparent as well. So as Scott touched on earlier, you can see who you're going to be working with, see exactly what the terms are, and like it's very, very, very transparent. You can even see on there sort of like the average time that the shipper's actually taking to pay above or under what's been agreed. And like you say, there's also the rating systems that John touched on. You really do know who you're going to be working with. And that's one of the massive selling points of the
That's one of
platform.
the key differences to the existing and sort of manual clearinghouse brokerage model, where as a shipper, and there was always a reluctance to say, we can't give this to a clearinghouse because we can't rely, we don't know who is going to be carrying our work, if they're going to resell it. With this now, it's so transparent, that, and it's more than likely a well-known name that's carrying your load. So that gives the confidence, and it gives more credibility to this system itself.
Okay, so just go to the other side, so not from the haulage side, from the actual, I used to get this as a consignee or the guy that sends it, or the business that sends it. So is it all blue chip? If I was a little manufacturer around the corner, doing 10 pallets a week, can that sign to HaulageHub and go through the process?
Yeah, effectively, anyone that's got any loads to move can basically utilise the process of HaulageHub. So whether that's like a large blue chip household name, we've got a few of those on the platform, which is great. So moving, whether it's hundreds of loads a week, or if it's once a month or once a year, effectively HaulageHub can provide you with and the RHA Exchange can provide with a cost effective solution that's been undertaken by a fully verified haulier.
What's just into one of the key features since we've had the partnership go with the RHA is the RHA member-to-member exchange, which is something that's not really been possible before. With a trusted partner, you're building new collaborations with other hauliers around the country that didn't exist before. And again, that's a really, really good advantage to your average haulier. And that's what I think, I always think of it from a small haulier point of view. What if we do? I've got excess loads tomorrow, I can't shift, bad weather, things have happened or something. Whereas spending hours trawling through the phone or everyone's little black books trying to contact the hauliers, it's on there, and loads are covered within seconds or minutes generally, and that's with trusted partners.
I always think it's an interesting conversation. You start 30% again. I'm sure it's a third. That when I used to work in Europe, as in the UK actually, for large fleets, I'd run large fleets. So 30% I'd always subcontract or I'd give away because I didn't want to do it. And that's still, my sense is, speaking to the industry on a regular basis, that's still roughly the same. So it doesn't matter if you're a big blue chip, it doesn't matter if you're a reasonably sized regional, national haulier, you'll get rid of what you don't want, because that's what we now lose the small margin that you make, and it's really, really simple. You know, so this is rather than, in some ways, you can see the transition because the traditional clearinghouses still exist, where there's a person sat, and I paraphrase the industry now, in a garage with a phone, with no trucks, with a bit of paper. That still goes on, you know. But then we move into the, you know, we actually get an alert saying, "Oh, there's a bit of a load in Doncaster if you want to get back to London." You know, and I mean, this is fantastic. You know, from a, because you're giving the industry an option of which way it wants to go. And I do believe, as you do, John, that it allows you to either grow the business, you know, by embracing the technology which you wouldn't have access to with your back office staff, if that makes sense. If you didn't provide in a digital process, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but you know, one concern in all of this, well, not concern actually, and I have a view on this, which is just my view, is that you're taking the human side out of things. You know, so one of the things this industry traditionally, as other industries based on, is you mentioned the little books. Everybody knows everybody, and I'm not saying this is a good or bad thing. You see, but by moving to a digital process, is it just, you know, is it like mirroring in the bank and having to say a certain word 5 times to get put through to an operator? You know, because the buttons aren't working. What's your views and thoughts on that? Or is it actually the way that the generations coming into the workplace now, certainly the youngest two, it's how they engage anyway? They don't want to talk to you.
I think it's fair to say that the marketplace isn't designed to actually remove the personal sort of touch points out there. I think it's more so just a case of actually making it more and more efficient. So I'll say in the instance where instead of going through your phone book and you're ringing through now half a dozen contacts, you kind of speaking to the person who can actually help you straight away. And it's not just a case of, right, that's it on a sort of ad hoc level. That conversation and sort of partnership, you feel like can continue to mature. So it didn't necessarily need to just be a system based touch point. It's not designed to replace all communication.
And I'd say it's the other way around, really, because remember in my days as a small haulier, you was only as good as every phone call, and when you're a small guy and when you need something, it's always no, or they put the phone down on you. So now you've got access, you've got a network of thousands now of like-minded operators, all in the same situation as you are, and that's
an opportunity where I made more friends.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, you know, I don't disagree with that, and I actually think, you know, my view, and this is my view, not an RHA view, but I think it's is that actually by adopting technology or digital technology, it makes the processes simpler. So you actually speak about things that are relevant rather than have to go for all that kerfuffle. You know, so you have a 20-minute chat, but actually you only have 2-minute chat now because it's that 2 minutes that you need to speak about.
Exactly.
You know, and it actually gives you that transparency, that visibility to have a more meaningful conversation. You know, rather than to have free goes to get a load moved, just do it once. You know, so you can see the progression. So finally, so how big is HaulageHub? How many loads a week do you move? Not particularly the RHA, because I know it's broad than just the RHA, which again is good. You know, it covers other areas. It does specialism on all the FARs. You have the FARs version of it, which is good as well. How many loads a week do you put through HaulageHub?
Roughly, 3,000 a week at the minute. 3,000. So it's a good variety, and you know, touched on it. There's a good variety between member to member subcontracting work, and then also, you know, working directly with shippers. So one of the key things I'll just touch on is John mentioned about some of the large household brands that are basically using HaulageHub now to post their work, and we sort of see that as very much a solution which helps level the playing field. So traditionally, again, going back to the smaller operator, they'd probably only get access to that type of work via subcontraction. Now they're actually getting the work direct from the shipper, so they're getting the premium rate, they're getting communication. And again, going back to your previous point around about building relationships, some of those large shippers are actually sort of gaining access to this wider network of hauliers that they never knew existed in a lot of cases. So they're actually probably saving a little bit of money. The hauliers making a little bit more, is cutting out some of the traditional middlemen in the industry, and yeah.
So I think, I mean, finally, I mean, I'm very pleased with the relationship that we've got, and I think, you know, for the reasons we've spoken about, it is moving with the times, old-fashioned words, but you know, these certain ways, it's actually adopting latest technology. You know, it's about giving a transparency and a trust rather than, but there'll always be skeptics. You know, and I think by continuing to develop the relationship and doing things like we've done this morning, it just makes people aware that, you know, it's the way forward as opposed to standing still, you know, in a world that's changing around us. So finally, I mean, I'll give each of one the last word just to why should people use HaulageHub, the RHA HaulageHub relationship, rather than a other digital system that's out there that's one of your competitors? What's different between you guys and everybody else, apart from obviously the RHA relationship?
I think just on that as well. So first of all, you know, rather just hearing it from ourselves, you know, we're doing more and more video testimonials, and again, going back to relationships in the industry, there's probably no one actually better to hear the positives of HaulageHub than directly from other hauliers. So I'd encourage your listeners and viewers to probably take a look on the website and to watch some of those videos to sort of see some of the positives. And for me, my personal favourite piece on HaulageHub is what I mentioned earlier, is that it levels the playing field. It allows access to all haulage companies of all sizes to have access to premium work, and that historically they probably wouldn't have necessarily been able to access.
So if you got 5,000 trucks or one, it could be you the one that's doing the work.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I think it's fair to say as well that there isn't really a barrier to actually start using it as well. I think
As long as you've got a no license
exactly, as long as you've got no license. Yeah.
and financial standing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really good point actually. To kind of cross you there, but no silly subscription fees.
Exactly. Yeah.
That was my final question. So where's the? I'm not going to ask you how you make money out of it, but so where's the? Well, I'm going to ask you, how do you make money out of that? You know, because you're not taking the £50 a pallet or the 5%. You're actually, you're doing it on a throughput basis with a standard fee applied.
Yeah. So it's just a very small sort of platform fee that's added to each load, but that's minuscule really on comparison to.
Well, I know that some of our members of the board actually use the service. I'd say not you, John, because obviously the pony and trap have gone.
No, but I think it's a really valid point, because it's a tiny transactional fee per load compared to either an extremely expensive and tied-in annual subscription, or it's a traditional broker taking £50, £100 or more out of the load. It's just, to me, it's just a whole. The transparency just works really, really well, and you can see. Obviously, I travel a lot internationally. The direction going forward, all the big blue chips, the big automotive companies, the chemical companies throughout Europe, they've got hundreds of international hauliers, different countries. So how on earth do they control that? Well, they're controlling it through digital freight platforms. So not so much is this transforming the haulage industry, it's really transforming the freight forwarding industry. So the automotive companies used to have 2 or 3 of the big, well-known freight forwarders controlling all of the business throughout Europe. That's changing quite rapidly now, and the digitalization, going back to the original point, this is what's driving that change, and it's not making it more expensive, it's making it really better. It's better value for the shipper, and it's really sort of changing the game for the
Are you UK only, or is it international as well? Sorry, I should know. It's just UK.
Currently UK at the moment, but very soon there'll be some Irish work on that.
Okay. Mind some people might say Northern Ireland's international now. You might have to cut that bit, actually. You don't have to do it. It's a bit controversial, don't you? No, he says it.
Some Republic of Ireland.
Some Republic. He's looking at that. No, it's time. Sorry, Rob Packer. Right. Anyway, thank you all very much for joining me today. I do think, as I said before, digitalisation and what we're doing together is taking the industry forward. I think the way you sum it up, it gives everybody access, to an opportunity. It's very good, that, Joe. And it's a really good summary. And, this was the Roadway podcast. We were talking about digitalisation with HaulageHub. And thank you very much for joining us.